Welcome to the compliance updates for August 2022 in the Southern region. In Arkansas recreational cannabis measure appears headed to fall ballot. A referendum to legalize recreational cannabis sales in Arkansas passed a critical milestone, likely assuring the proposed constitutional amendment will be on the state's November ballot. State election officials said that the referendum proponent, Responsible Growth Arkansas, succeeded in submitting the required 89,151 valid signatures to qualify the initiative for the ballot, according to the Associated Press. The only additional step is for the State Board of Election Commissioners to review the measure, including the proposal's name and ballot title, the AP reported. This is expected to occur August 3rd. The referendum calls for recreational marijuana sales to begin March 8, 2023. With existing medical marijuana providers. State regulators would award 40 additional store licenses through a lottery by July 5, 2023, and 12 additional cultivation licenses by November 8, 2023, according to the petition. The measure calls for a 10% retail tax on recreational marijuana products, in addition to local and state sales taxes. And another one out of Arkansas. So Arkansas Supreme Court conditionally allows cannabis legalization question on the ballots. As a part of the ongoing legal battle after Arkansas Board of Election Commissioners blocked a popular cannabis legalization initiative from November ballots that we just went over, the state Supreme Court will conditionally allow the adult use question to move forward. The Arkansas Supreme Court is allowing the adult use cannabis use question on November ballots conditionally while it decides whether the State Board of Election Commissioners decision to reject the proposal was valid, 5 News reports. In its order, the court said it would make its final determination by August 25th. In rejecting the popular name and ballot title, which blocked the question from ballots despite the initiative garnering more than 100,000 signatures than was required, the commissioner said they didn't think the title fully explained the proposed constitutional amendment, claiming that the measure would repeal the state's current THC limit on the medical cannabis products. In their lawsuit challenging the decision, Responsible Growth Arkansas argued that the board used a, quote, overly stringent, end quote, approach in their decision-making that violated the state constitution. The lawsuit also challenges a 2019 law that gives the board the power to certify ballot initiatives. Prior to the 2019 law, ballot measures have to be reviewed by the state attorney general prior to the circulation of the petitions. The campaign also argues that the board's decision was incorrect because it prevents hundreds of thousands of Arkansans to have opportunity to vote on the amendment, the report says. Responsible Growth Arkansas attorney Steve Lancaster previously said that the board's decision was unfair because it would require the title to go into too much detail, saying, quote, the type of detail that the board expected or demanded in this case would make the ballot title thousands and thousands of words long. Well, we'll see how that all plays out for Arkansas. Best of luck to them. All right, moving on to Florida, but sticking to the legalization theme. Newest legalization effort in Florida receives $5 million in support. So, recreational cannabis legalization in Florida recently received a generous amount of funding from one of the state's largest medical cannabis companies. A legalization campaign recently launched by Smart and Safe Florida has garnered the support of medical cannabis company Trulieve and Grammy-nominated country music group, the Bellamy Brothers. Trulieve was donated $5 million to the effort that could lead to a measure on the 2024 ballots. Interesting enough, considering everything that's happening with Trulieve right now, and the CEO's husband, speaking of the CEO. So according to Trulieve CEO Kim Rivers, legalization is all about access. Quote, we came into this with a mission to provide access to high quality products that are safe and have an appropriate value proposition to give folks control over in their original days medical journey, end quote, Rivers told News Service of Florida. If passed, the amendment would legalize cannabis for recreational use for anyone 21 and older. This includes possession, purchase, or use of cannabis and cannabis accessories for non-medical personal consumption by smoking, ingestion, and otherwise. It would also alter the state's current, quote, medical marijuana treatment centers to, quote, acquire, cultivate, process, manufacture, sell, and distribute such products and accessories, end quote. As of 2016, Florida requires that these businesses be vertically integrated, meaning they must control everything from cultivation to retail sales. According to WJCT News, this prevents smaller entrepreneurs from entering the industry. So, quick note from here, like essentially to get a business in Florida, you have to have millions and millions of dollars because one quote unquote license in Florida is vertically integrated and you can have up to 25 retail storefronts with that one license. The only caveat to this is in Florida, you can only sell what you produce. So you can only sell what you cultivate and what you manufacture within your lab. And that's the only things that you can sell within the store. So you can't do wholesale between different licenses at the moment with the medical model in Florida. Back to the article. So the measure also has the support of Smart and Safe Florida political committee head and musician David Bellamy of the musical duo the Bellamy Brothers. The country group members are Florida natives who are previously partnered with TruLeaf to create a line of cannabis products. As we travel, quote, as we travel the country, we see the benefits of adult use, and as Florida residents, we love the Freedom State moniker and believe that Florida needs to join the millions of Americans whose adults are free to use cannabis without fear of incarceration, end quote. The duo told WJCT News in an email. A different legalization initiative from the political committee, Sensible Florida, which proposed to regulate cannabis like alcohol, was rejected in June 2021 by the Florida Supreme Court. Another initiative was rejected in April 2021 as well. Yeah, regulate like alcohol just doesn't work because guess what? Alcohol doesn't have purchase limits, and we do. That's just one of many things that just doesn't work with regulating cannabis like alcohol. Again, back to the article. Despite these hurdles, Rivers is confident that TruLeaf lawyers have analyzed these previous attempts to learn from the past. Quote, every initiative has provided some level of learning, Rivers said. With this initiative, the authors have taken a hard look at the Supreme Court ruling surrounding the previous efforts and taken that into consideration. We believe it's a very appropriate and narrowly focused amendment that does differ appropriately to the legislator. Compared to previous attempts to legalize cannabis in Florida, Rivers believes that TruLeaf's strong support for medical cannabis patients could help get the word out about the new initiative. Quote, one of the interesting aspects here is that we do have a medical cannabis market, and we have hundreds of thousands of patients in Florida who are utilizing medical cannabis regularly. So our ability to reach out and to have more direct communication is a bit unique from positioning perspectives, end quote, Rivers concluded. But according to Rivers, Florida is home to many advocates willing to help out. While we're happy, quote, while we're happy to provide investment, we also do believe that there are a lot of folks who are very passionate about this, and I expect to have a great engagement across the community, she added. Advocates like the Bellamy brothers, who believes that legalization in Florida is a step forward ending nonviolent cannabis convictions, quote, we see it every day and hear it from everyone we speak with, that the idea of putting adults in jail and ruining their lives for using cannabis is crazy. We have also read the polls and see consistent and strong support for an effort to allow adults to use cannabis, the Bellamy brothers wrote. All right, in Oklahoma, so we have addressed this in a previous update, but this is a opinion piece from the Green Paper, so let's kind of just dive right on in what they have to say. Oklahoma isn't issuing medical cannabis licenses for 2 years. So this opinion piece, here's a high-level summary. So there should be a limit on cannabis business licenses, at the very least a temporary limit until the market matures. I'm not against free markets, but I'm against unsustainable consumer last models. What's happening in Oklahoma's medical cannabis industry is not sustainable or consumer friendly. Agreed. That's why the state's cannabis regulators have decided to stop accepting new applications for growers, processors, and dispensary licenses for 2 years. Current applications won't be impacted, but the moratorium kicks in August 26. So potential operators have a few weeks to submit an application before the opportunity closes. A report from the Legislative Office of Fiscal Transparency Loft found that, in a nutshell, Oklahoma's most accessible cannabis program in the nation isn't working long-term. Oklahoma's rapid implementation didn't allow for an adequate regulatory framework to be developed, according to the report. Isn't that the truth? They had no way of developing and enforcing this regulatory framework, and everyone is losing their goddamn minds about metric implementation, which metric is pretty much at a positioning to be the federal state track and trace anyway, and the federal bills getting introduced are requiring a track and trace. So yeah, they need a lot more transparency and accountability into their program. That's for sure. Anyway, that's my opinion. Approved grower license application alone grew 549% from 2018 to 2021. Oklahoma took just 4 months to implement the medical cannabis program, while most states take 26 months on average. The report gives the nod to programs like my home state of Missouri, Arkansas, and West Virginia, which are very, very stringent, which have seen success in implementing license caps. There are currently 56 dispensaries per 100,000 people, compared to 20 McDonald's, Walmarts, or Sonics per 100,000 people in Oklahoma. That's a great comparison. The supply doesn't meet the demand. I strongly believe that the government shouldn't control the private sector. That's not what I'm after. With that being said, Oklahoma's market is the perfect example of what can happen without a strong handle and oversight on new cannabis programs. Cannabis consumers deserve the assurance that the businesses they buy from are meeting basic standards. But if regulators can't keep tabs on the growing number of cannabis businesses, how do consumers have the assurance? Very true. Even vitamins, which don't receive FDA approval, are required to follow good manufacturing practices, GMP certifications, which limit state check-ins. With limited state check-ins like Oklahoma businesses have experienced, cannabis businesses are essentially able to operate with no oversight or standards. That's a luxury no consumer packaged good receives in the U.S. For that reason, I support Oklahoma's moratorium, but I hate the idea of restricting access to business ownership. This is why a temporary license cap at the start of the new cannabis program could be an ideal solution. Regulators could have the chance to test what works and what doesn't while guaranteeing proper inspections and oversight of the program matures. It would also give new licenses a chance to enter a state marketplace and survey local consumers about their preferences and favorite brands before entering the space. Here. Yeah, it's definitely not a consumer first market, it seems, because the testing and everything that's being dealt with in Oklahoma and just the straight up unsafe products that are happening because there's no standardization in the labs. And now we actually have a centralized database to track those test results. It's been really concerning over the last few years. So I'm glad that they're finally doing something about it. All right, and our last two updates are out of Washington, D.C. Okay, so effective August 5th, eligible D.C. residents may now immediately purchase medical cannabis from licensed dispensary using the temporary patient registration approval sent to applicants upon submission of an online patient application. Temporary registrations are valid for 30 days and may be used while an application is under review. DC residents whose applications are approved will be sent a permanent digital and physical registration prior to the expiration of their temporary registration. The registration number included in both the temporary and permanent registration will be identical. Applicants who are unresponsive to requests for missing information or who are determined to be ineligible will have their temporary registration deactivated. Patient and caregiver registrations remain free through August 18, 2022. Applicants who apply by September 30th will be issued a 2-year registration if approved. ABRA implemented this change to ensure that patients are able to obtain cannabis for medical use as quickly as possible. Non-DC residents are ineligible to register in DC's medical cannabis program, but may continue to purchase cannabis from DC licensed dispensaries if they are a patient in one of the 38 states or territories. The Medical Marijuana Self-Certification Emergency Amendment Act of 2022, signed into law by Mayor Muriel Bowser on July 6, 2022, authorized temporary registrations and self-certification by DC residents at least 21 years of age and older. They essentially legalized, just under a medical model. All right, and our last update, still out of DC. Joint Cannabis Task Force to begin inspections of unlicensed cannabis businesses in September. After a 30-day grace period, a, quote, Joint Cannabis Task Force consisting of various district government agencies will be visiting operating businesses to verify compliance with District of Columbia legal requirements. District law requires businesses to abide by the regulatory requirements of DC Health, the Department of Consumer and Regulatory Affairs, and the District of Columbia Fire and Emergency Medical Services departments, and the Office of Tax and Revenue. District law requires the following: DC Health edibles and other manufactured products being offered by businesses to customers must be approved by DC Health. Businesses also must be in compliance with DC food safety and hygiene laws. DCR, so business operating in the district must be registered with DCR. Businesses also must be in compliance with the district general business requirements, such as having the proper business license and certificate of occupancy. FEMS, businesses must be in compliance with DC Fire Code regulations, such as having a clear path of egress of customers and having properly working smoke and carbon monoxide detectors. OTR, businesses must register with OTR and pay taxes in DC. In addition to the requirements above, only dispensaries licensed by the Alcoholic Beverage Regulation Administration, ABRA, may sell cannabis in DC. 7 cannabis dispensaries are currently licensed to operate in DC. Joint agency inspections will take place unannounced after the 30-day grace period to verify the compliance of operating businesses with legal requirements. Businesses in violation may be subject to a fine and other enforcement action permitted by the statutory authority of each respective enforcement agency. And that is your compliance updates in the Southern region for August 2022.